Hello, my friend. Here's something nobody tells you about comfort. It's killing you softly, one convenient choice at a time, not with pain, not with drama, but with the gentle, seductive whisper that says, just take it easy today. You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep enough, but because your life has become too smooth. Every rough edge buffed away, every inconvenience eliminated, every challenge avoided, and somehow, despite having everything easier than ever before, you feel weaker than you've ever been. The alarm goes off. You silence it again and again. When you finally drag yourself out of bed, there's this weight on your chest that has nothing to do with how many hours you slept. Small things feel massive. Your boss's slightly different tone in an email, a client's simple request, a family member's innocent question. Everything becomes heavy. Everything feels like too much. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not even particularly weak. You're just comfortable. And comfort, my friend, is the most dangerous addiction of all. Think about it. When was the last time you did something genuinely difficult? Not work difficult, because work gets done whether you want to or not. I'm talking about choosing discomfort when you could choose ease. When did you last take the stairs when the elevator was right there? Had a difficult conversation instead of sending a text? Sat with your thoughts instead of reaching for your phone? These aren't just random examples. They're what I call micro battles. And you've been losing them one by one without even realizing it. Here's what happens when you avoid micro battles. Your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. Not overnight, not obviously, but gradually, like a muscle that atrophies from lack of use. Remember when you were younger? Maybe you walked an hour to meet friends and thought nothing of it. Now you feel irritated if your ride is 5 minutes late. You used to figure things out, solve puzzles, create solutions from nothing. Now you Google everything before you even try to think. You used to push through tiredness. Now the slightest exhaustion feels like a valid reason to quit. What changed? The world got more comfortable, and you adapted, but not in the way you think. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine someone lying in bed for months, not because they're sick, but just lying there. What happens to their legs? They get thinner, weaker. The muscles literally shrink because they're not being used. Your mind works the same way. When you avoid every small challenge, when you choose the path of least resistance every single time, your mental muscles atrophy. Your capacity for discomfort, for patience, for persistence, it all gets smaller. And then life happens. A real challenge appears. Nothing catastrophic, just normal life stuff. A project at work that requires actual effort. A relationship conversation that can't be avoided. A goal that demands consistency. And you crumble, not because you're incapable, but because you're out of practice. This is the hidden cost of comfort addiction. It doesn't announce itself. There's no moment where you wake up and think, I've become weak. It happens in tiny increments, disguised as self-care, as treating yourself well, as just being smart about conserving energy. But here's the truth. You're not conserving energy. You're losing capacity. Think about your typical day. You wake up, and within seconds, your hand reaches for your phone. Instant stimulation, instant distraction. You don't even give your brain a chance to be bored, to wander, to think. Breakfast? Ordered with a tap. Entertainment. Endless scrolling. Work? templates and shortcuts for everything. Conversation, messages, not calls. Definitely not face-to-face if you can avoid it. And at the end of this frictionless day, you feel empty, restless, like something's missing, even though you had everything you wanted. That feeling? That's your soul, telling you it needs resistance to grow. I know what you're thinking. But I work hard. I'm tired at the end of the day. Sure. But are you tired from effort or tired from avoiding effort? There's a difference. Real tiredness comes from pushing against something. Mental exhaustion from solving a difficult problem. Physical tiredness from actual exertion. The satisfying kind of tired that comes with knowing you gave something your all. Then there's the other kind. The heavy, foggy, unsatisfying tiredness that comes from a day of avoiding, scrolling, choosing easy, taking shortcuts. Your body isn't tired. Your mind is just sluggish, understimulated, bored, even though you were busy all day. Let's talk about what comfort addiction really looks like in modern life. It's choosing delivery over cooking because you deserve a break every single night. It's avoiding a phone call because texting is easier even when the conversation would take 30 seconds live and turns into a 2-hour text thread of misunderstandings. It's sitting in the elevator for 2 floors because why not? It's there. It's refreshing social media for the 100th time instead of sitting with 5 minutes of silence. It's having every possible streaming service, but feeling like there's nothing to watch because the act of choosing feels like effort. It's having an important task on your list, but spending 3 hours preparing to do it instead of just starting. None of these things are catastrophic on their own. That's what makes comfort addiction so insidious. Each choice seems reasonable, logical even, but together, over time, they're training your brain to expect instant gratification, zero friction, and constant ease. And then real life, which is inherently full of friction, starts to feel unbearable. Let me tell you about micro battles, because this is where everything changes if you let it. Micro battles are the small, seemingly insignificant moments where you choose slight discomfort over ease. They're not dramatic. Nobody's going to applaud you for winning them, but they're everything. A micro battle is getting up when your alarm goes off instead of hitting snooze. It's taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It's doing the dishes right after dinner instead of later. It's having the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. It's writing that email you've been putting off. It's going for a walk when you'd rather scroll. It's sitting in silence instead of reaching for distraction. These battles don't feel significant because they're not, individually. But here's what happens when you start winning micro battles. Your tolerance for discomfort increases. Slowly, imperceptibly, but it increases. Each time you choose the harder path in a small moment, you're doing a rep at the mental gym. You're building the muscle that lets you handle bigger challenges. And the reverse is true. Every time you choose comfort in a micro battle, you're training yourself to avoid difficulty. You're making yourself more fragile. Think about it like this. If you can't handle the micro discomfort of taking the stairs, how will you handle the macro discomfort of pursuing a meaningful goal that takes years? If you can't sit with 5 minutes of boredom, how will you persist through the boring middle of any worthwhile project? If you can't have one uncomfortable conversation, How will you build deep relationships that require vulnerability? The micro battles aren't preparation for the real thing. They are the real thing. Most people think they're waiting to build discipline when it matters, when the big opportunity comes, when they really need to step up. But here's the harsh truth. You don't suddenly become disciplined when stakes are high. You become exactly who you've been training yourself to be in the small moments. If you choose comfort 99 times out of 100 in low-stakes situations, you'll choose comfort on the 100th time, too, even when it costs you everything. Now, I can hear the objection forming in your mind. But don't we deserve comfort? Isn't rest important? Shouldn't we be kind to ourselves? Absolutely. Rest is crucial. Recovery is necessary. Self-compassion is vital. But here's the distinction that changes everything. There's a massive difference between rest and avoidance. Rest is strategic. It's intentional recovery after real effort. It restores you. Avoidance is chronic. It's running from discomfort disguised as self-care. It depletes you. Rest makes you stronger. Avoidance makes you weaker. You know the difference. You feel it in your body. Real rest feels peaceful. Avoidance feels itchy, restless, unsatisfying. After a day of genuine effort followed by intentional rest, you feel accomplished, tired but good. After a day of avoidance disguised as rest, you feel foggy, guilty, like you wasted time, even though you were relaxing. Your body knows the difference between earned rest and habitual escape. So here's what I want you to understand. The goal isn't to eliminate all comfort. The goal is to stop being addicted to it. An addiction isn't just using something, it's needing it, being unable to function without it, organizing your entire life around accessing it. Are you addicted to comfort? Ask yourself, can you sit in a waiting room without pulling out your phone? Can you drive without music or podcasts? Can you eat a meal without entertainment? Can you go a day without checking your delivery app? Can you handle unexpected changes to your routine without feeling anxious? Can you start a task that feels difficult without extensive preparation? If any of these feel genuinely hard, not just inconvenient, but actually difficult, you might be more dependent on comfort than you realize. And here's the thing about addiction. It's progressive. It gets worse over time if you don't address it. What's comfortable today becomes baseline tomorrow. And then you need more comfort just to feel okay. You used to be fine with a small living space. Now you need more room to feel settled. You used to appreciate a good meal. Now it has to be exactly what you're craving, or it feels like a disappointment. You used to enjoy music. Now it's just background noise you can't be without. You used to be able to focus for hours. Now you can't make it through a 20-minute task without checking your phone. This is called hedonic adaptation, and we'll dive deeper into it later. But for now, just understand this. Comfort is a treadmill. The more you have, the more you need to feel normal. And every increase in your comfort baseline makes you less capable of handling normal life friction. Let's get practical for a moment, because understanding the problem is only half the battle. You need to know what to do about it. The solution isn't to make your life miserable. It's not about suffering for suffering's sake or romanticizing hardship. The solution is simple, though not easy. Start choosing discomfort intentionally, in small doses, regularly. Pick one micro battle to win today. Just one. Maybe it's getting up when your alarm first goes off. No snooze. Maybe it's taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe it's calling someone instead of texting. Maybe it's doing 10 push-ups right now before you feel ready. It doesn't matter which battle you choose. What matters is that you choose one and you win it. Then tomorrow, win another one, and another the day after. You're not trying to transform overnight. You're just trying to stop the slide, to stop training yourself to be weaker. And here's what starts to happen when you do this consistently. Small discomforts start feeling less uncomfortable. The stairs that made you breathe heavy, after a few weeks, they're just stairs. The cold shower that seemed impossible, it becomes invigorating. The difficult conversation you dreaded, still not fun, but no longer terrifying. Your capacity expands. Not because you're pushing yourself to extremes, but because you're consistently choosing slight discomfort over total ease. And something even more important happens. You start trusting yourself again. See, every time you avoid a micro battle, you're sending yourself a message. I can't handle this. This is too much for me. Your subconscious hears that, and it believes it. Over time, you develop this deep-seated belief that you're fragile, that you need to be protected from discomfort, that challenge is a threat rather than an opportunity. But when you start winning micro battles, you send a different message. I can do hard things. Small challenges don't break me. And your brain starts to believe that instead. This isn't about becoming some stoic warrior who never enjoys comfort. It's about becoming someone who can handle normal life without falling apart. Because here's what nobody tells you when they're selling you the dream of ultimate convenience. A life without friction is a life without growth. Muscles grow from resistance, skills develop from practice, character forms from challenge. Strip away all resistance, and you don't get peace. You get atrophy. You get a life that's theoretically perfect, but feels mysteriously empty. You get every comfort you ever wanted and a growing sense that something's terribly wrong. That's comfort addiction, and it's an epidemic. Look around. How many people do you know who have everything they need and more, yet seem perpetually dissatisfied? Who are more irritable, not less, despite having every convenience? Who can't handle the smallest disruption to their routine without stress? Who need everything to be perfect before they can be okay? It's not because they're ungrateful or flawed. It's because they've inadvertently trained themselves to need comfort to function. And the more comfort they get, the more they need. The treadmill keeps speeding up. So, let me ask you directly, where are you on this spectrum? When was the last time you deliberately chose the harder path when an easier one was available? When did you last sit with discomfort instead of immediately reaching for relief? How often do you do things that require genuine effort versus things that are just easy? Be honest with yourself, not to judge yourself, but to see clearly where you are, because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. And if you're realizing that you've become more dependent on comfort than you'd like to admit, here's the good news. This is reversible. You're not permanently weak. You're just out of practice. And just like a muscle that's atrophied can be rebuilt, your tolerance for discomfort can be restored. It starts with one micro battle, today, not tomorrow, not Monday, not when you feel ready. Today, right now, this moment. What's one small, uncomfortable thing you've been avoiding? Do it right now. Feel the resistance. Notice how your brain offers you 100 reasons to do it later, and do it anyway. That feeling? That's not pain. That's growth. That discomfort you're experiencing? It's not a signal that something's wrong. It's a signal that you're doing something right. You're choosing to be slightly uncomfortable now so you can be capable later. You're building the exact capacity you've been losing. And here's what's beautiful about micro battles. They're available everywhere, all the time. You don't need special equipment. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need ideal circumstances. You just need to notice the moments where you have a choice between easy and slightly hard, and choose hard. The elevator or the stairs, the phone call or the text, starting now or waiting until you feel ready. These moments are happening dozens of times a day. They're opportunities disguised as inconveniences, and each one is a chance to either strengthen or weaken yourself. Most people sleepwalk through these moments. They always choose the path of least resistance without even thinking about it. But you're not most people anymore. You're someone who understands what's at stake. You're someone who knows that comfort, while pleasant, comes at a cost. And you're someone who's willing to pay the price of small discomforts to avoid the much larger price of a diminished life. Let's talk about what happens when you don't address comfort addiction. It doesn't plateau. It gets worse. Your window of tolerance gets smaller and smaller. Things that used to be minor annoyances become major disruptions. Internet a bit slow, day ruined, coffee not quite right, mood destroyed, plans change unexpectedly, anxiety spikes, someone disagrees with you, personal attack, temperature slightly off, can't focus. Your ability to roll with life's natural punches erodes. You become brittle, fragile in a way that has nothing to do with your actual capabilities and everything to do with your shrinking comfort zone. And the really insidious part, you don't notice it happening because it's gradual. Each day you're only slightly more intolerant than the day before, slightly more dependent on everything being just right, until one day you look around and realize that you need everything to be perfect just to feel okay. That's not strength. That's not self-care. That's addiction. And like any addiction, it demands more and more while delivering less and less satisfaction. The first hit of comfort feels great. The 100th hit just feels necessary. You're not getting happier. You're just getting more dependent. So what's the alternative? The alternative is deliberately building your capacity for discomfort. Not by making yourself miserable, but by regularly choosing slight challenge over total ease. It's counterintuitive, I know. The world tells you that happiness comes from eliminating discomfort. Get the better chair, the faster internet, the more convenient option, always. But that's not how humans actually work. We don't thrive in the absence of challenge. We thrive in the presence of challenge we're capable of meeting. Too much challenge, and we're overwhelmed. Too little, and we atrophy. The sweet spot is choosing challenges slightly beyond our current comfort level regularly, consistently, not massive challenges that break us, small ones that stretch us. This is how you build resilience, not through motivation or positive thinking, but through repeated exposure to manageable discomfort. You can't think your way to a higher tolerance for difficulty. You have to practice your way there. Every micro battle you win is practice. It's a rep at the gym of life. And just like physical training, consistency matters more than intensity. Winning one micro battle today is worth more than planning to win 100 battles someday. So let me give you a framework, a simple way to start rebuilding your capacity for discomfort. Every day, identify 3 micro battles. 1 physical. Take the stairs, do push-ups, walk instead of drive. 1 mental. Solve something without Google, read instead of scroll, write instead of consume. 1 emotional. Have a difficult conversation, say no to something, ask for what you need. Just 3. That's it. 3 small moments where you choose discomfort over ease. Will it transform your life overnight? No. Will it stop the slide and start building capacity? Absolutely. Because here's the secret. Transformation isn't about massive changes. It's about tiny changes, repeated consistently over time. You don't need to become a different person. You just need to make different choices in small moments. The person who takes the stairs every day for a year is different from the person who always takes the elevator. Not because of one trip up the stairs, but because of the cumulative effect of hundreds of small choices. Same with comfort addiction. You don't beat it with one heroic act. You beat it with 1,000 small victories. And here's what starts happening when you do this. Life gets easier. Not because circumstances change, but because you change. The things that used to stress you out become manageable. The disruptions that used to derail you become minor blips. You become more resilient, more capable, more confident in your ability to handle whatever comes. Not because you're avoiding challenges, but because you're regularly practicing rising to them. This is the paradox of comfort. The more you chase it, the more you need it, and the less satisfied you feel. But the more you embrace small discomforts, the more comfortable you become with life itself. The goal isn't to never be comfortable. It's to stop needing comfort to function, to be someone who can enjoy comfort when it's available, but doesn't fall apart when it's not. To have preferences without being enslaved by them, to appreciate ease without being addicted to it. That's freedom. Real freedom. Not the freedom to never be uncomfortable, the freedom to be okay, even when you are. So here's your challenge, right now, in this moment. What's one micro battle you can win today? Not someday, not eventually. Today. Find it, face it, win it, and then tomorrow, do it again. You're not trying to become superhuman. You're just trying to become normally human again. To have the baseline resilience that people had before everything became so comfortable. To be able to handle normal life friction without collapsing. That's not asking too much. That's asking exactly enough. Start small. Start today. Start now. The elevator or the stairs? Which do you choose? That choice matters more than you think. And because it's not really about the stairs at all. It's about who you're training yourself to be. One small choice at a time. Someone who can handle life's challenges? Or someone who needs everything to be easy? You decide. Right now, with the next small choice you make. Welcome to the first micro battle. I hope you win it. You've started winning some micro battles. Maybe you took the stairs yesterday. Maybe you had that conversation you were avoiding. Maybe you got up when your alarm went off instead of hitting snooze for the fifth time. And here's what probably happened. It felt good. For a while, you felt proud, accomplished, like you were finally getting your act together. But then Friday night came. You'd had a long week. You deserved a break. Just a little relaxation. You ordered takeout instead of cooking. Fine. Reasonable even. You sat down to watch one episode of that show everyone's talking about. Just one. 3 hours later, you're still on the couch. The show's autoplay feature has done its job beautifully. You've watched 6 episodes without even deciding to. Your phone is in your hand. You don't remember picking it up, but there it is. You're scrolling. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, back to Instagram. The loop is endless and mindless. It's 2 a.m. You finally drag yourself to bed. The next morning, your alarm goes off, and that weight is back. That heaviness you thought you were getting rid of, all those micro battles you won during the week, they feel erased, undone by one night of, what? Relaxation? Recovery? No. Something else entirely. You just fell into the dopamine trap. And here's the thing about this trap. It doesn't look like a trap. It looks like rest, like self-care, like a reward you earned. But it's not. It's something far more dangerous. Let me explain what's actually happening in your brain when you binge watch, scroll endlessly, or reach for easy pleasures after a hard day. Your brain has a reward system. It's ancient, evolved over millions of years to help you survive. When you do something good for you, eat food, accomplish a task, connect with others, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine isn't pleasure itself. It's the anticipation of pleasure. It's what makes you want things. It's motivations in chemical form. And it works beautifully when you're hunting for food, solving problems, or building relationships. Because these things require effort before reward. First you work, then you get the dopamine hit, then you get the actual reward. But modern life has hacked this system. Now you can get dopamine hits without any effort at all. Scroll your feed, dopamine. Another video starts, dopamine. A notification appears, dopamine. A like on your post, dopamine. Hit after hit after hit, with zero effort required. And your brain, which evolved in a world where dopamine signaled genuine reward, can't tell the difference. It thinks you're accomplishing something. It thinks you're thriving, but you're not. You're just stimulated. Here's where it gets dangerous. Your brain adapts to whatever level of dopamine stimulation you regularly give it. If you constantly feed it easy, effort-free dopamine hits, it recalibrates. That becomes the new baseline. And suddenly, normal activities, reading a book, having a conversation, doing focused work, don't provide enough dopamine to feel interesting. They feel boring, tedious, like pulling teeth. Not because they are boring, but because your brain has been trained to expect constant, effortless stimulation. You've heard about drug tolerance, right? How addicts need more and more of a substance to get the same high. Dopamine works the same way. The more easy hits you give yourself, the more you need just to feel normal, and the less capable you become of enjoying things that require effort. This is why you can't read anymore, not because reading is boring, you used to love it, but because reading requires sustained attention with delayed gratification, and your brain has been trained to expect immediate, constant hits. This is why conversations feel like work. Not because people are boring, but because conversation requires presence, and your brain would rather be checking for notifications. This is why you can't start projects, not because you're lazy, but because projects require effort before reward, and your brain has learned to demand reward before effort. The dopamine trap has reversed the equation. Instead of effort to dopamine to reward, you've trained yourself to expect dopamine to maybe effort to maybe reward. Except there's no real reward at the end of that equation, just the need for another hit. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in real life. You sit down to work on something important, a project that matters, something that could actually move your life forward. 5 minutes in, your brain starts getting restless. The work isn't providing enough stimulation. It's hard. It requires thinking. There's no immediate payoff. Your hand reaches for your phone. You don't consciously decide to pick it up. It just happens. Just a quick check. Just to clear your mind. 20 minutes later, you're deep in a scroll hole. You've watched videos about topics you don't care about, read arguments between strangers, and absorbed content you won't remember in 5 minutes. You finally put the phone down, feeling foggy and slightly guilty. You try to work again, but now your brain is even less interested. It got its hit. Why would it want to do something hard now? This happens 3 or 4 more times. Eventually, you give up on the work. But you don't feel rested. You feel depleted, like you've been busy but accomplished nothing. Because you have been busy. Busy feeding your brain empty calories. Here's what most people don't understand. The problem isn't that you watched those videos or scrolled that feed. The problem is that you've trained your brain to need that level of stimulation just to function. And every time you give in to that need, you strengthen the pattern. You're not relaxing. You're not recovering. You're digging the hole deeper. Real recovery looks different. It's reading a book without your phone nearby. It's going for a walk without a podcast. It's sitting in silence and letting your mind wander. It's activities that don't provide constant dopamine hits, but actually restore your capacity for focus. The difference is clear when you pay attention to how you feel afterward. After genuine rest, you feel restored, clear, ready. After a dopamine binge, you feel foggy, depleted, like you wasted time even though you were relaxing. Your body knows the difference. You just have to listen. So what do you do about this? How do you escape the dopamine trap when it's everywhere? The answer isn't to eliminate all pleasure or become some kind of dopamine monk. That's not realistic or necessary. The answer is to reset your baseline, to retrain your brain to find satisfaction in activities that require effort and provide delayed gratification. And the only way to do that is through intentional dopamine fasting, not forever, just periodically, long enough to reset your tolerance. Here's what this looks like practically. Pick one day, just one. On that day, you eliminate easy dopamine sources. No social media, no streaming, no mindless scrolling, no video games, no junk food. What can you do? Read, walk, think, create, have real conversations, sit with boredom. The first few hours will be uncomfortable. Your brain will revolt. It will tell you this is stupid, that you deserve a break, that checking your phone for just a second won't hurt. Don't listen. Sit with the discomfort. Notice it. Watch it. And here's what happens. Around hour 4 or 5, something shifts. Your mind starts to clear, like fog lifting. Books become interesting again. Conversations become engaging. Your own thoughts become worth thinking. Not because these things changed, because your baseline changed. By hour 8 or 9, you'll notice something remarkable. You feel more rested than you have in weeks, despite doing nothing that would traditionally be called relaxing. That's what genuine rest feels like when you're not dopamine depleted. Do this once a week, and you'll notice a permanent shift in your capacity for focus and satisfaction. But here's the harder truth. Daily dopamine discipline matters even more than weekly fasting. Every day, you're faced with countless micro decisions about dopamine, the phone or the book, the scroll or the conversation, the autoplay or the off button, the notification or the silence. Each decision is training your brain one direction or the other, toward constant stimulation and decreased capacity, or toward sustained focus and increased satisfaction. You can't make the right choice every time. That's not realistic. But you can start noticing the choices, becoming aware of them. And once you're aware, you can start making different choices more often. Here's a framework that helps. Before you reach for easy dopamine, pause just for 10 seconds. Ask yourself, am I actually tired or am I just understimulated? If you're actually tired, like genuinely exhausted from real effort, then rest is appropriate. Take it. But if you're just bored, if you're just avoiding something uncomfortable, if you're just seeking stimulation, pause. Choose something that requires effort. Instead, read a page, write a paragraph, do 10 push-ups, have a real conversation, something that makes your brain work a little instead of just consuming. Will it feel as immediately satisfying? No. That's the point. You're training your brain that satisfaction doesn't have to be instant. That effort can feel good. That delayed gratification is still gratification. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. The things that used to feel boring start feeling interesting again. The work that used to feel impossible starts feeling doable. The focus that used to last 5 minutes starts lasting an hour. Not because you developed superhuman discipline, but because you stopped constantly depleting your dopamine reserves. You gave your brain a chance to recalibrate to normal instead of constant overstimulation. Think about it like this. If you ate candy all day, every day, regular food would start tasting bland. That doesn't mean regular food is bland. It means your taste buds are overwhelmed. Same with dopamine. If you're constantly consuming hyper-stimulating content, normal life starts feeling dull. That doesn't mean life is dull. It means your brain is overwhelmed. Stop overwhelming it, and normal life becomes satisfying again. Here's what this looks like in practice. Morning. Your alarm goes off. Your first instinct is to check your phone before you even get out of bed. Don't. Win that micro battle. Get up, shower, move your body before you give yourself a screen. Commute. Your instinct is to fill every second with a podcast, music, or scrolling. Try silence instead. Just once. Let your mind wander. See what thoughts emerge when you're not constantly consuming. Work. You hit a difficult part of your task. Your hand reaches for your phone. Pause. Take a breath. Push through for just 5 more minutes before you allow any distraction. Lunch. You want to scroll while you eat. Try eating with just your thoughts. Notice the food. Be present. Evening. You finished work. Your brain says it's time to decompress with screens. Try movement instead. A walk. Some stretching. Anything that doesn't involve staring at a glowing rectangle. Night. 1 episode before bed turns into 6. Set a timer. 1 episode, then off. No autoplay. None of these are massive changes. They're all micro battles. But each one is retraining your brain, teaching it that satisfaction doesn't require constant stimulation, that you can be okay, even good, without an endless dopamine drip. And here's the beautiful part. As your tolerance resets, you start enjoying the easy dopamine sources more when you do use them. That show you binge-watched without really watching? When you watch 1 episode intentionally, you actually enjoy it. That feed you scrolled mindlessly? When you check it once deliberately, it's actually entertaining. The problem was never the content. It was the quantity and the mindlessness. Moderation isn't about perfect control. It's about intentionality. Choosing when to indulge rather than defaulting to constant indulgence. Using easy pleasure as a treat, not as a baseline requirement to feel okay. This is what separates someone who enjoys entertainment from someone who's addicted to it. The first person can take it or leave it. The second person needs it to function. Which one are you? Be honest. When was the last time you went a full day without screens except for necessary work? When did you last read a book for an hour without checking your phone? When did you last sit through a meal without any entertainment? If these questions make you uncomfortable, that's information, not judgment, just information about where you are. And if you're realizing that you're more dependent on easy dopamine than you'd like to admit, you're not alone. This is epidemic-level widespread. The average person checks their phone 150 times a day, reads for less than 15 minutes daily, can't focus on a single task for more than a few minutes without seeking distraction. This isn't because we're all suddenly broken. It's because we're all swimming in an ocean of engineered, optimized, weaponized dopamine triggers. Apps designed by teams of PhDs whose entire job is making you unable to put them down. Algorithms that learn exactly what keeps you scrolling. Autoplay features that remove the friction of choosing to continue. You're not weak for struggling with this. You're up against billions of dollars of behavioral engineering. But you're not helpless either. You have something these systems don't account for: awareness. Once you see the game being played, you can choose not to play. Once you understand how the dopamine trap works, you can step around it. Not perfectly, not always, but more often than you do now. And more often is enough. Remember, you're not trying to become some dopamine-free ascetic. You're just trying to stop being controlled by the need for constant stimulation, to be someone who can enjoy easy pleasures without being enslaved by them, to have the capacity for sustained focus when it matters, to find satisfaction in effort, not just in consumption. That's not superhuman. That's just human. The way humans functioned for thousands of years before smartphones and streaming services. You already have this capacity. You've just buried it under layers of overstimulation. Dig it back out. One micro battle at a time. Start today, right now. What's one easy dopamine source you can delay for just 1 hour? Not eliminate, just delay. Feel the discomfort of waiting. Notice what your brain does with it. And then, after that hour, if you still want it, take it. Consciously. Deliberately. That's not deprivation. That's agency. That's the difference between choosing pleasure and being controlled by the need for it. And that difference changes everything. The dopamine trap is real, it's powerful, it's everywhere, but it's not invincible. You are not powerless against it. You just have to see it clearly, understand how it works, and make different choices in small moments. The phone or the book, the scroll or the silence, the binge or the boundary. These choices shape your brain. They determine your capacity for focus, satisfaction, and genuine rest. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose one small battle at a time, and watch what happens when you stop feeding your brain empty calories and start giving it real nourishment instead. You don't need more stimulation. You need less. You don't need more content. You need more capacity. You don't need better apps. You need better attention, and you build that attention the same way you build any capacity, through practice, through repeatedly choosing effort over ease in small moments, through resetting your dopamine baseline instead of constantly raising it, through winning the micro battles that rebuild your tolerance for normal life. This is the second layer of comfort addiction, the dopamine trap. And now that you see it, you can't unsee it. Every time you reach for your phone out of habit, you'll notice. Every time you autoplay another episode, you'll be aware. Every time you choose easy stimulation over genuine rest, you'll know what you're doing. That awareness is uncomfortable? Good. Discomfort is information. Use it. Let it guide you toward different choices, not perfect choices, just different ones. More often than before. That's all it takes to start climbing out of the trap. One choice at a time, one micro battle at a time, the phone or the book. Which will you choose right now? That choice matters more than you think, because it's training your brain for the next choice and the next and the next. Choose the book. Just this once. See what happens. You might be surprised by what your brain can do when you stop overwhelming it with artificial stimulation. You might remember what genuine focus feels like, what deep satisfaction feels like, what being present feels like. It's all still there. You've just forgotten how to access it. Time to remember. Put the phone down. Pick up something that requires effort. And notice what happens when you give your brain a chance to reset. This is how you escape the dopamine trap. Not by avoiding all pleasure, but by choosing when and how you experience it. Not by eliminating technology, but by using it as a tool instead of letting it use you. Not by becoming superhuman, but by reclaiming your normal human capacity for focus and satisfaction. Start now. The trap only gets deeper the longer you wait. 1 hour, one book, one conversation, one moment of silence. That's all it takes to begin. Will you take it? You're starting to understand the game now. You see the micro battles for what they are. You recognize the dopamine trap when it's pulling you in. You're making progress, real progress. You've been taking the stairs more often. You're not scrolling quite as much. You've even had a few conversations you used to avoid. And something interesting is happening at work. You're getting noticed. Your manager mentions a new project. It's bigger than what you usually handle. More responsibility, more visibility, more everything. Your first reaction? Your heart races, not in a good way. Your palms get sweaty, your chest tightens. That familiar voice in your head starts up. This might be too much. What if you fail? What if everyone sees you're not as capable as they think? So you do what feels safe. You smile, you nod, and later you send an email. I'm honored, but I think someone else might be better suited for this. I'm pretty busy with my current projects. It's not a lie. You are busy, and someone else might be better suited. But that's not why you said no. You said no because you're comfortable where you are, and this opportunity would make you uncomfortable. Here's what nobody tells you about safety. It's often just fear wearing a reasonable disguise. Let me explain what I mean. There's real safety, actual danger avoidance. If someone offers you a chance to defuse a bomb with no training, declining isn't fear. It's sanity. Then there's comfort masquerading as safety. When you avoid something not because it's genuinely dangerous, but because it's unfamiliar, and your brain, brilliant as it is, can't always tell the difference. Both trigger the same physiological response. Heart racing, tension, that voice saying, danger, danger, don't do this. But one is protecting you from harm. The other is protecting you from growth. The question is, which one are you listening to? Think about your current job, your current relationship status, your current living situation, your current daily routine. How much of it is genuinely right for you? And how much of it is just familiar? Because familiar feels safe, even when it's slowly killing you. The job you had for 7 years that bores you to tears? Familiar, safe. The relationship that stopped growing 3 years ago? Familiar, safe. The city you complain about but never leave? Familiar, safe. The routine that makes every day feel like a repeat? Familiar, safe. None of these things are actually keeping you safe. They're just keeping you stuck. But your brain doesn't distinguish between stuck and safe. Both feel stable. Both feel known. And unknown? Unknown triggers fear, even when unknown leads to something better. Especially when unknown leads to something better. Here's the insidious part about comfort addiction. It makes you afraid of exactly the things that would improve your life. The new job that would challenge you? Scary. The relationship that would require vulnerability? Risky. The city that would offer more opportunity? Overwhelming. The routine that would demand more from you? Too much. So you stay. You convince yourself it's wisdom. It's knowing your limits. It's being realistic. But it's not. It's fear. Just fear with a very convincing narrative. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life. You've been at your company for 5 years. You know the systems. You know the people. You know exactly what's expected and how to deliver it with minimal stress. Then the industry starts changing. New technology, new methods, new competitors doing things differently. Your company announces training programs, new initiatives. They need people who can adapt, learn, grow with the changes. But you found your comfortable groove. Why mess with what works? So you don't volunteer for the new projects. You don't take the training. You stick to what you know. And here's what you tell yourself. I'm being smart. Why would I add stress to my life? I'm good at what I do. That should be enough. It sounds reasonable. It sounds wise. But 5 years later, the industry has shifted. The skills you've been perfecting are becoming obsolete. The company is reorganizing, and suddenly, safe doesn't feel so safe anymore. The people who seemed crazy for learning new things, for taking on uncertain projects, for leaving their comfort zones, they're thriving. And you? You're realizing that what you thought was security was actually stagnation wearing a security badge. This is the illusion of safety, the belief that staying still is the safest option. But the world doesn't stay still. Industries change, technologies evolve, economies shift. The only real security is adaptability, the ability to learn, grow, and change with circumstances. And adaptability is built exactly where? In discomfort, in unfamiliar territory, in challenges that scare you a little, the very things you've been avoiding in the name of safety. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Are you actually safe or just familiar with your current situation? There's a huge difference. Safe means you have options, skills that travel, resilience that adapts, confidence that you can handle change. Familiar just means you've been somewhere long enough to memorize it. And memorization isn't security, it's just comfort. Think about the risks you're actually taking by playing it safe. The risk that your industry changes and you're unprepared. The risk that your relationship stagnates until it dies. The risk that opportunities pass you by because you were too comfortable to reach for them. The risk that you wake up at 60 and realize you spent 40 years hiding from life in the name of security. Those are real risks, massive ones. But they don't trigger your fear response because they're slow, gradual. They don't feel urgent, unlike the immediate discomfort of trying something new, which feels urgent even though it's not dangerous. Your brain is very good at detecting immediate threats, not so good at detecting long-term ones. So it keeps you safe from the wrong things, safe from discomfort, from uncertainty, from challenge, while leaving you completely vulnerable to obsolescence, to stagnation, to a life half-lived. This is why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, cities that depress them, not because these situations are actually safe, but because they're known. And unknown feels dangerous even when it's the path to something better. So, what do you do about this? How do you tell the difference between genuine safety and comfort disguised as safety? Here's the test. Ask yourself what you're avoiding. If you're avoiding actual danger, physical harm, financial ruin, genuine risk to your well-being, that's safety. Listen to it. But if you're avoiding discomfort, uncertainty, challenge, or growth, that's comfort addiction. Question it. Real safety expands your options. Comfort addiction shrinks them. Real safety gives you confidence in your ability to handle change. Comfort addiction makes you fragile. Real safety is built on capability. Comfort addiction is built on avoidance. See the difference? One makes you stronger. The other makes you weaker while feeling protective. Let's get specific. Here's what genuine security actually looks like in today's world. Skills that are transferable across industries and roles. A network of relationships built on genuine value exchange. Savings that give you options when circumstances change. Confidence in your ability to learn new things quickly. Resilience to bounce back from setbacks. None of these come from staying in your comfort zone. All of them require regularly stepping out of it. The person who's actually secure isn't the one who's been doing the same thing for 20 years. It's the one who's done 20 different things and knows they can learn whatever comes next. The person who's actually safe isn't the one who's never faced a challenge. It's the one who's faced challenges regularly and developed the confidence that comes from overcoming them. Security isn't a destination, it's a capacity. And you build that capacity by deliberately choosing uncertainty over familiarity, challenge over ease, growth over comfort. Which brings us back to that opportunity you turned down, that project, that promotion, that chance to do something bigger. Why did you really say no? Was it genuinely not right for you? Or was it just unfamiliar, and unfamiliar triggered your fear response? Be honest. Because this pattern, avoiding growth in the name of safety, it doesn't stop. It compounds. Every time you choose familiar over growth, you reinforce the neural pathway that says unknown equals danger. And your comfort zone gets smaller. The challenges you used to handle feel bigger. The risks you used to take feel riskier, until eventually any change at all feels threatening. You become trapped in an ever-shrinking comfort zone, calling it wisdom when it's really just fear. I've seen this happen to brilliant people, people with so much potential who convinced themselves that playing it safe was smart. They turned down opportunities because the timing wasn't right. They stayed in situations that weren't serving them because better the devil you know. They avoided learning new things because I'm too old to start over. And year by year, their world got smaller, their options fewer, their confidence lower, not because they weren't capable, but because they stopped exercising their capability. They let comfort addiction convince them that staying still was safe. Here's the truth. Nothing is really safe. The world changes. Circumstances shift. The only real security is your ability to adapt. And adaptation requires practice. You can't suddenly become adaptable when crisis hits. You build adaptability through regular exposure to manageable uncertainty, by taking small risks, trying new things, pushing into unfamiliar territory, not recklessly, but regularly. Every time you choose a challenge over comfort, you're building your adaptability muscle. Every time you try something new, you're proving to yourself that you can handle the unknown. Every time you push past fear disguised as caution, you're expanding your capacity. This is real security, not the illusion of it. So here's what I want you to do. Identify one area where you've been choosing familiarity over growth. Maybe it's your job. You know you should be learning new skills, but you keep putting it off because you're busy. Maybe it's your relationships. You know you should have difficult conversations, but you avoid them because things are fine as they are. Maybe it's your health. You know you should change your habits, but you don't, because this is just how I am. Whatever it is, notice it. See it clearly. That's not safety. That's comfort addiction. And it's keeping you exactly where you are while the world moves forward. Now ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Not if I was fearless. Fear is useful information. But if I wasn't letting fear make my decisions for me, maybe you'd take that training, start that project, have that conversation, make that change. You don't have to do it all at once. That's not realistic. But what if you took one small step toward growth instead of away from it? What if you said yes to one thing that scares you a little, not terrifies you, not overwhelms you, just makes you a little uncomfortable? That's the sweet spot. Challenge that stretches you without breaking you. And here's what happens when you do this regularly. Your definition of safe expands. Things that used to feel scary start feeling normal. Challenges that used to seem impossible start seeming doable. Not because you've become fearless, but because you've proven to yourself through experience that you can handle more than you thought. That's real confidence, not the kind that comes from positive thinking, but the kind that comes from evidence. Evidence that you've stepped into the unknown before and survived, thrived even. Evidence that discomfort is temporary, but growth is lasting. Evidence that the things you fear are usually less scary than the anticipation of them. This is how you build genuine security in an uncertain world, not by avoiding all risk, but by regularly taking small risks so you develop the confidence and skills to handle bigger ones when they come, not by staying in one place forever, but by proving to yourself that you can adapt to new places, not by memorizing one set of skills, but by demonstrating to yourself that you can learn whatever you need. The person who's actually secure isn't the one who never faces uncertainty. It's the one who faces uncertainty regularly and knows they can handle it. So let's talk about what this looks like practically. Every quarter, identify one area where you've gotten too comfortable, where you're coasting, where you've stopped growing because you've stopped being challenged. Then deliberately introduce a small challenge there. In your career, learn a skill that's adjacent to what you do. Not a complete career change, but something that expands your capabilities. In your relationships, have one conversation you've been avoiding. Not a confrontation, but a real, vulnerable discussion. In your health, change one habit that you've been too comfortable to address. In your learning, pick up one topic that has nothing to do with your work or immediate goals. Just something that makes you think differently. These aren't massive changes. They're controlled challenges, deliberate discomfort, and they serve a crucial purpose. They keep your comfort zone expanding instead of shrinking. Because here's what happens with comfort zones. They either grow or shrink. They never stay the same. If you're not regularly pushing against the edges, they contract. Slowly, but surely. Activities you used to do without thinking become anxiety-inducing. Challenges you used to handle become overwhelming. Changes you used to navigate become threatening. Your world gets smaller not because the world changed, but because your tolerance for anything outside the familiar shrank. But if you regularly push against the edges, gently, deliberately, your comfort zone expands. Things that used to scare you become routine. Challenges that used to overwhelm you become manageable. And you develop what psychologists call stress inoculation. Small, regular doses of manageable stress that build your resilience to bigger stresses. Just like a vaccine. Small exposure that prevents major illness. This is the antidote to the safety illusion, not recklessness, not throwing caution to the wind, but deliberate, regular exposure to manageable challenge, choosing growth over stagnation, adaptation over rigidity, expansion over contraction. This is what real security looks like in the modern world, and it's available to you right now, today. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You just need to identify one area where you've been choosing familiar over growth and make a different choice, a small one, manageable, but different. Maybe it's finally taking that course you've been meaning to take. Maybe it's applying for that position even though you don't check every box. Maybe it's starting that project even though you're not sure exactly how it will turn out. Maybe it's having that conversation even though it might be uncomfortable. Whatever it is, do it. Not someday, this week. Because every week you wait, your comfort zone contracts a little more, and what feels slightly uncomfortable today will feel terrifying next year if you don't act. But if you act now, if you take that small step toward uncertainty, you're not just accomplishing that one thing, you're training yourself that you can handle the unknown. You're building evidence that challenges don't destroy you. They develop you. You're proving that the safety you thought you had by staying still was an illusion. And real security comes from your ability to move. This is the third layer of comfort addiction, the safety illusion, the belief that familiar equals safe, that staying still is the lowest risk option. It's not. It's the highest risk, because the world moves, and if you stay still while it moves, you don't stay safe. You become irrelevant, obsolete, stuck. And the tragedy is, you don't realize it until it's much harder to change. Don't let that happen to you. Choose challenge over comfort, growth over stagnation, adaptation over rigidity, not in everything, not all at once, not recklessly, but regularly, deliberately, as practice for the inevitable changes that will come whether you're ready or not. The question isn't whether uncertainty is coming. It's whether you'll be prepared for it. And you prepare by practicing, by regularly stepping into small uncertainties so big ones don't break you, by building your capacity for change before change is forced upon you, by expanding your comfort zone instead of defending it. That's real safety. That's genuine security. And it starts with one choice, one small step toward the unfamiliar. What will yours be? You've been doing the work. You're winning micro battles. You've reset your dopamine baseline. You've even started taking small risks, stepping out of the familiar. And people are noticing. Your work is improving. Your focus is sharper. You're showing up differently. So when the opportunity comes, the real one, not the small stepping stone, you say yes. New role, new responsibilities, new visibility. You've got this, right? You've been preparing. You've been growing. First meeting comes. You walk in. Everyone's looking at you, waiting for your input, and your heart starts pounding. Not excitement, fear. Your mouth goes dry. Your mind goes blank. That voice starts screaming, "You're going to mess this up. They're all going to see you don't belong here. What made you think you could do this?" You push through. You say something. It comes out okay. Not brilliant, but okay. But that feeling, it doesn't go away. It follows you home. It sits with you all night. The next morning, you wake up and immediately feel it. That dread, that certainty that you've made a terrible mistake. You could back out. Say you reconsidered, that you're not ready, that someone else would be better. And here's what you tell yourself. I'm just listening to my gut. My intuition is saying this isn't right. But is it? Is it really your intuition? Or is it just fear with a more respectable name? This is the most dangerous confusion comfort addiction creates. The inability to tell the difference between fear and intuition. Both feel the same in your body. Both create that sense of something's wrong. Both urge you to stop, to retreat, to avoid. But one is protecting you. The other is limiting you. And if you can't tell them apart, you'll spend your entire life running from the very things that would transform you. Let me explain the difference. Intuition is quiet, clear, specific. It doesn't argue. It doesn't justify. It just knows. It says things like, "This person isn't trustworthy. This deal has hidden costs. This path leads somewhere I don't want to go." And when you listen to intuition, you feel peaceful. Even if the decision is hard, there's a clarity to it. Fear, on the other hand, is loud, chaotic, vague. It argues. It catastrophizes. It creates 100 scenarios of everything that could go wrong. It says things like, what if you fail? What if people judge you? What if you're not good enough? What if, what if, what if? And when you listen to fear, you feel stuck, anxious, like you're avoiding something rather than choosing something. But here's why this is so confusing. They create identical physical sensations. Rapid heartbeat, sweaty palms, tight chest, butterfly stomach. Your body doesn't distinguish between don't do this because it's wrong for you and don't do this because it's uncomfortable. It just sends the alarm signal. And your job is to interpret it. Most people interpret it wrong. They think any discomfort is a warning. Any nervousness is a red flag. Any fear is intuition saying no. So they avoid. They retreat. They call it listening to themselves, when really they're just listening to their comfort addiction. Here's the key question that changes everything. What is this feeling trying to protect me from? If it's protecting you from genuine harm, financial ruin, toxic relationships, compromising your values, that's intuition. Listen, if it's protecting you from discomfort, embarrassment, challenge, or growth, that's fear. Question it. Let me give you some examples so you can see the difference. Example 1. You're offered a job that would double your responsibilities and put you in the spotlight. Your heart races. Your stomach churns. The voice says, "This is too much. You can't handle this. You're going to fail publicly." Is this intuition or fear? Ask, what's it protecting me from? Harm? No. The worst case is you struggle and learn. Or you fail and try something else. Discomfort? Yes. This role would push you, challenge you, require growth. That's fear, not intuition. Example 2. You're offered a great opportunity that requires you to compromise your ethics in small ways. Your stomach churns. The voice says, "This doesn't feel right." Is this intuition or fear? Ask, what's it protecting me from? Harm? Yes. Compromising your values has long-term consequences for your integrity and self-respect. Discomfort? Maybe, but that's not the primary issue. That's intuition. Listen to it. See the difference? One is protecting you from growth disguised as danger. The other is protecting you from actual danger disguised as opportunity. But they feel similar. That's the trap. Here's another way to distinguish them. Look at the story your mind is telling. Fear tells elaborate stories, detailed narratives of everything that will go wrong, catastrophic predictions, social humiliation, complete failure. You'll mess up in the meeting. Everyone will see you don't know what you're doing. They'll lose respect for you. Word will spread. Your career will be over. You'll end up. See how it spirals? That's fear. Intuition doesn't tell stories. It states facts. This person has lied to you 3 times. This contract has a clause that protects them, not you. This path requires you to become someone you don't want to be. No elaboration, no catastrophizing, just clear information. If your mind is spinning elaborate disaster scenarios, you're listening to fear. If you're receiving clear, simple information, you're hearing intuition. Here's the third distinction. Check what happens when you imagine doing the thing anyway. If it's fear, imagining yourself doing it feels terrifying at first, but then you can see yourself succeeding. You can imagine a positive outcome, even if it requires pushing through discomfort. If it's intuition, imagining yourself doing it feels wrong at every stage. There's no version of this that feels aligned, even if you succeed externally. For example, imagine taking that challenging new role. Fear says, you'll fail, everyone will judge you, it will be humiliating. But you can also imagine, or you might rise to it, grow tremendously, and look back proud. Both futures exist in your imagination. That's fear. Intuition says, this role requires you to manage in a way that conflicts with your values. You can't imagine a version where you do this and feel good about yourself. Only one future exists that feels true. That's intuition. The question is, are both futures possible in your imagination, or only one? If both, it's fear. If only one feels true regardless of outcome, it's intuition. Now here's where comfort addiction makes this even more complicated. It trains you to believe that all discomfort is bad. So any nervousness becomes a sign you shouldn't do something. Any anxiety becomes your body telling you no. Any hesitation becomes intuition warning you. But that's not how it works. Discomfort isn't always a warning. Sometimes it's an invitation to grow, to stretch, to become more than you currently are. And if you reflexively avoid all discomfort, labeling it as intuition, you'll never grow. You'll stay exactly where you are, calling it wisdom when it's really just fear. I've watched people do this for years, decades even. They turn down opportunities because it didn't feel right, when really it just felt uncomfortable. They avoid relationships because something was off, when really vulnerability just felt scary. They quit projects because their heart wasn't in it, when really they just hit the difficult middle part. And they genuinely believe they're being wise, listening to themselves, following their intuition. But they're not. They're following their comfort addiction and calling it intuition. And the tragedy is they never realize it, because comfort addiction is so good at telling convincing stories. I just knew it wasn't right for me. My gut said no. I trusted my instincts. All true statements. But were those instincts intuition or fear? They never ask. So how do you get better at distinguishing between them? Practice. Conscious, deliberate practice. Start paying attention to your body's signals and asking, what is this protecting me from? Every time you feel that nervousness, that resistance, that something's off feeling, pause. Don't immediately act on it. Don't immediately dismiss it either. Just pause and investigate. Is this feeling specific or vague? Does it tell a simple truth or an elaborate story? Can I imagine a positive outcome? Or does everything feel wrong? What's the worst that happens if I do this? Is it genuine harm or just discomfort? What am I actually afraid of? Danger or growth? These questions help you sort signal from noise. and over time, you get better at it. The distinction becomes clearer. You start recognizing fear's signature, the elaborate stories, the vague dread, the focus on what others will think. And you start recognizing intuition's signature, the quiet certainty, the specific information, the alignment question. But here's what you need to understand. In the beginning, when you're not sure which is which, you should lean toward action. Here's why. The cost of ignoring fear disguised as intuition is usually low. You'll be uncomfortable for a while, then you'll adapt and grow. The cost of ignoring intuition is high. You'll compromise yourself in ways that have lasting impact. But the cost of following fear when you think it's intuition, that's the highest cost of all. Because you'll spend your entire life playing small, avoiding growth, and never realizing that the voice you thought was protecting you was actually limiting you. So when in doubt, take the action. Especially if the worst case is embarrassment or failure, not genuine harm. You can imagine a version where you succeed and grow. The thing scaring you is also exciting you. Successful people tend to respect and even seek discomfort. That last point is crucial. Often, fear and excitement create identical sensations. Racing heart, heightened alertness, nervous energy. The difference is just the story you tell about it. This is terrifying versus this is exhilarating. Same body, different interpretation. And here's what's wild. You can often change the interpretation just by reframing it. Try this next time you're nervous about something. Instead of saying, "I'm anxious," say, "I'm excited," out loud, to yourself. "I'm excited about this presentation. I'm excited about this conversation. I'm excited about this challenge." Your brain will actually start believing it, because physiologically, anxiety and excitement are nearly identical. The only difference is whether you're focused on threat or opportunity. This isn't toxic positivity. It's not pretending danger doesn't exist. It's recognizing that most of what we label as anxiety is actually just activation, energy, readiness. And that energy can fuel performance instead of preventing it, but only if you interpret it correctly. If you interpret every activation as danger, you'll avoid everything that matters. If you interpret it as readiness, you'll use it to rise to challenges. The choice is yours. The sensation is the same. Let me give you a framework for making this choice. When you feel that activation, that nervousness, that resistance, run through this checklist. Intuition. Check. Does this violate my core values? Is there clear evidence of harm or deception? Do I have specific factual concerns? Does this feel wrong regardless of outcome? If yes to multiple questions, probably intuition. Proceed with caution or decline. Fear. Check. Am I telling myself catastrophic stories? Is my main concern what others will think? Can I imagine succeeding at this? Would this challenge help me grow? If yes to multiple questions, probably fear. Lean toward action despite discomfort. Excitement. Check. Despite the nervousness, am I also curious? Is there a part of me that wants to do this? Would I regret not trying this? Is this scary because it matters? If yes to multiple questions, reframe as excitement and go for it. This isn't perfect. Sometimes you'll misread the signals. That's okay. The goal isn't perfect discernment. The goal is to stop reflexively avoiding everything that makes you uncomfortable. Because comfort addiction has trained you to interpret all discomfort as danger, and that training is keeping you trapped in a life smaller than you're capable of living. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're choosing to stay exactly who you are. Every time you label fear as intuition, you're giving yourself permission to avoid. Every time you let nervousness stop you, you're reinforcing the belief that you can't handle challenge. And the tragic part? You're doing it all while thinking you're being wise, listening to yourself, following your gut. But you're not listening to yourself. You're listening to your conditioning. The conditioning that says comfort equals safety. That discomfort equals danger. That any nervousness is a red flag. That conditioning is lying to you. Real safety comes from capability, not comfort. Real wisdom comes from distinguishing between genuine threats and growth opportunities. And real intuition doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like knowing. So here's your practice for this layer of comfort addiction. For the next month, every time you feel resistance to something, pause and ask, is this intuition protecting me from harm or fear protecting me from growth? Write it down. Journal about it. Get specific. What exactly am I afraid of? What's the worst that could realistically happen? What's the best that could happen? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And here's the key. Sometimes do the thing even though you're scared. Not recklessly, not ignoring genuine red flags. But when you've checked and it's clearly fear, not intuition, and the worst case is just discomfort, do it anyway. Feel the fear. Name it. Thank it for trying to protect you. And then do it anyway. Because here's what happens when you do. You prove to yourself that fear was wrong. That you can handle more than you thought. That discomfort doesn't destroy you. That growth lives on the other side of fear. And slowly, over time, you recalibrate. You stop interpreting every nervous feeling as a stop sign. You start recognizing activation for what it is, energy you can use. You develop the ability to hear real intuition through the noise of fear. This is advanced work. It requires honesty, self-awareness, courage. But it's essential if you want to escape comfort addiction. Because as long as you can't tell fear from intuition, you'll keep choosing comfort and calling it wisdom. You'll keep avoiding growth and calling it self-awareness. You'll keep playing small and calling it listening to yourself. And years will pass. Opportunities will fade. Potential will remain untapped. All because you couldn't distinguish between the voice protecting you and the voice limiting you. Don't let that happen. Learn to hear the difference. Practice making distinctions. Choose growth even when it's scary. Your intuition will guide you when there's real danger. But most of the time, what you think is intuition is just fear wearing a more respectable mask. Take off the mask. See it clearly, and then make a choice based on who you want to become, not just who you currently are. That's how you break free from this layer of the trap. Not by ignoring your feelings, but by understanding them accurately. Not by being reckless, but by being honest about what's actually risky. Not by dismissing fear, but by not letting it make all your decisions. The voice in your head right now telling you this is too hard, too much, too risky, is that intuition or fear? You know how to tell now. What will you choose? You've come far. You're winning micro battles. You've escaped the dopamine trap. You've stopped confusing safety with familiarity. You can tell fear from intuition. You're different now, stronger, more capable. Life should feel easier, right? It doesn't. In fact, It feels harder in a strange way. Not worse, just different. You've got the better job, the improved habits, the expanded comfort zone, but you're not satisfied. You thought you would be, but you're not. And here's what's confusing. You have more now than you did 6 months ago. More success, more comfort, more of what you thought you wanted. So why do you feel restless? Why does the coffee that used to make your morning feel special now taste bland unless it's exactly perfect? Why does the apartment that used to feel like an achievement now feel barely adequate? Why do the conveniences that used to delight you now feel like baseline requirements? Something's wrong, but you can't quite name it. Let me name it for you. Hedonic adaptation. It's the final boss of comfort addiction. The most subtle, the most dangerous, and most people never even realize they're caught in it. Here's how it works. Your brain is terrible at staying satisfied. Whatever level of comfort, success, or pleasure you achieve, your brain adapts to it. It becomes the new normal. What was amazing yesterday is just okay today. What was okay today will feel insufficient tomorrow. It's not because you're ungrateful or broken. It's because your brain is literally designed this way. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. No matter how fast you run, you stay in the same place emotionally. Get a raise? Exciting for 2 weeks. Then it's your new baseline. Now you need another raise to feel that excitement again. Move to a nicer place? Thrilling for a month. Then it's just home. Now the flaws bother you as much as the old place's flaws did. Buy the thing you've been wanting forever. Euphoria for a few days. Then it's just another possession. Now you want the next thing. This is why people who win the lottery are often no happier a year later. Why celebrities with everything still feel empty. Why billionaires still want more. It's not about the amount. It's about the adaptation. Your brain normalizes everything, good and bad, which is actually useful when dealing with hardship. You adapt to challenges, and they become manageable. But it's devastating when chasing comfort, because no amount of comfort ever stays comfortable. You always need more just to feel normal. And here's where this connects to everything we've talked about. This adaptation process is why comfort addiction is so insidious. Every increase in comfort raises your baseline. Every convenience you add becomes a requirement. The luxuries of last year become the necessities of this year. And things that used to be minor inconveniences become major disruptions. Think about your life 10 years ago. What did you tolerate then that would absolutely frustrate you now? Slower internet, less convenient food options, more manual tasks, more waiting, more friction. You adapted to those things being better, and now you can't imagine going back. Your baseline shifted. What used to be luxury is now normal. What's now normal used to be unimaginable. And here's the kicker. You're not happier. You just need more comfort to feel okay. This is the treadmill, and it speeds up over time. The more comfort you have, the more sensitive you become to any reduction in comfort. The AC breaks, day ruined, internet buffers for 30 seconds, frustration spikes, food delivery takes an extra 10 minutes, mood destroyed. Your favorite show isn't available, genuine distress. None of these are real problems. They're just deviations from your elevated baseline. But they feel like real problems because your tolerance for discomfort has shrunk as your comfort has grown. You're living objectively better than kings did 200 years ago. But you're not happier. You're just more irritable. Because happiness doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from the relationship between your circumstances and your expectations. When circumstances exceed expectations, you feel good. When they fall short, you feel bad. Simple math. But here's what hedonic adaptation does. It constantly raises your expectations to match your circumstances. So the gap never widens in the positive direction for long. It just resets. Then any small drop feels massive. This is why people with very little can be genuinely happy. And people with everything can be miserable. It's not about what you have. It's about the gap between what you have and what you've trained yourself to need. And every time you increase your comfort without increasing your tolerance for discomfort, you're making yourself more fragile, more dependent, more easily disturbed. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. You used to walk 15 minutes to the store, no big deal. Then you got a car. Now walking 15 minutes feels impossible. An inconvenience you shouldn't have to endure. Your baseline shifted. You used to wait a week for packages. You were fine with it. Then 2-day shipping became normal. Now waiting more than 2 days feels like terrible service. Your baseline shifted. You used to have to actually go to the bank, wait in line, interact with a teller. Now you can't imagine not being able to deposit checks from your couch. The idea of going to a bank feels archaic. Your baseline shifted. None of these shifts made you happier long term. They just made you more dependent on convenience and more irritable when convenience isn't available. This is the hedonic treadmill in action. You're running faster and faster. More convenience, more comfort, more optimization, but you're not getting anywhere. You're just raising the bar for what counts as acceptable and lowering your capacity to handle anything that falls below that bar. So, what do you do about this? How do you get off the treadmill? The answer is counterintuitive. You deliberately lower your baseline, not by giving up everything and living like a monk, but by regularly choosing less comfortable options when you could choose comfort, by practicing discomfort even when you don't have to. Remember micro battles? This is their ultimate purpose. Every time you choose the stairs, you're lowering your baseline for physical ease. Every time you sit with boredom, instead of reaching for your phone, you're lowering your baseline for stimulation. Every time you eat simple food instead of ordering exactly what you're craving, you're lowering your baseline for gustatory pleasure. You're training your brain that you don't need maximum comfort to be okay, that you can be fine, even good, with less. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. The treadmill slows down. Your baseline stops rising. It might even lower slightly. And suddenly, normal things feel good again. A simple meal tastes delicious instead of just adequate. A basic comfort feels like a treat instead of a requirement. A minor convenience feels like a luxury instead of a baseline expectation. You're not depriving yourself. You're resetting your sensitivity, like clearing your palate between courses so you can actually taste the food. You're clearing your comfort palate so you can actually enjoy comfort when it's there. This is why people who regularly practice discomfort, athletes, meditators, people who do hard things, often seem happier than people who optimize for maximum comfort. It's not that their lives are objectively better. It's that their baseline is lower. They can find satisfaction in simpler things because they haven't trained themselves to need extraordinary things just to feel normal. Let me give you a practical framework for this. Once a week, have a low baseline day. One day where you deliberately choose less comfortable options. Walk instead of drive. Cook instead of order. Read instead of stream. Silence instead of music. Simple food instead of optimized meals. Not to punish yourself, to reset yourself, to remind your brain that you can be perfectly fine, even happy, without maximum comfort. And here's what you'll notice on these days. The first few hours are uncomfortable. Your brain protests. It wants its usual level of stimulation and ease. But by hour 4 or 5, something shifts. You start noticing things you usually miss. The sky, your thoughts, the taste of simple food. Your mind clears. Your appreciation increases, and by the end of the day you feel more rested than you do after a day of maximum comfort and convenience. Because you've given your nervous system a break from constantly needing more. You've lowered the baseline, reset the expectation, and suddenly tomorrow's normal comforts will feel special again. This is the antidote to hedonic adaptation, not deprivation, but recalibration, not suffering, but sensitivity reset. You're not giving up comfort. You're just making sure you can still appreciate it. Now, let's go deeper, because hedonic adaptation doesn't just apply to physical comfort. It applies to everything: success, recognition, achievement, even relationships. Think about your career. When you first got your current position, it probably felt like an accomplishment. Now, it's just your job, the baseline. You need the next level to feel that sense of achievement again. Think about your relationship, if you're in one. Early on, just being together felt special. Now, you need more novelty, more excitement, more perfection for it to feel good. The relationship didn't get worse. Your baseline adapted. What used to be enough is no longer enough, not because it changed, but because you did. You normalized it. And now, you need more to feel the same satisfaction. This is devastating for long-term fulfillment, because if you're always chasing the next level of anything to feel satisfied, you'll never be satisfied. There's always a next level, always something more, always an improvement to chase. You'll spend your entire life on the treadmill, running faster and faster, and wondering why you never arrive. The answer? You can't arrive, not by adding more. You can only arrive by changing your relationship with what you have, by practicing gratitude, yes, but not just thinking grateful thoughts, by actively lowering your baseline so you can actually feel the gratitude, by deliberately choosing less sometimes so more feels like more instead of like baseline. Here's a powerful practice: gratitude through subtraction. Once a month, remove a comfort you've come to take for granted. Hot water for showers, coffee, your favorite food, streaming services, whatever, not forever, just for a week. Feel the absence. Notice what it was providing. Experience life without it. Then, when you add it back, you'll actually appreciate it again. It won't just be normal. It'll be a gift. This is how you combat adaptation, by creating contrast. Your brain can't appreciate what's always there. It needs variation to notice value. So you create that variation deliberately You subtract, then add back. You simplify, then appreciate. You lower, then enjoy the rise. This keeps you sensitive, keeps you grateful, keeps you off the treadmill. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you practice voluntary discomfort, the more you enjoy comfort. The more you practice simplicity, the more you appreciate luxury. The more you practice lowering your baseline, the higher your actual satisfaction. Because satisfaction isn't about the absolute level of comfort you have. It's about the gap between what you have and what you need. And the more you need, the harder it is to be satisfied. But the less you need, the easier it is to feel abundant. This is why some of the happiest people you'll meet aren't the ones with the most. They're the ones who need the least. They've kept their baselines low. So everything feels like enough, like more than enough. Meanwhile, people with everything often feel like nothing's ever enough. Not because they're ungrateful, but because their baselines are so high that even abundance feels barely adequate. Which person do you want to be? The one who needs everything to be perfect to feel okay? Or the one who can find satisfaction in simple things because they've kept their needs low? The choice is yours, and you make it with every small decision. Every time you upgrade when you don't need to, you're raising your baseline. Every time you optimize for maximum comfort, you're raising your baseline. Every time you eliminate small inconveniences, you're raising your baseline. And every time you raise your baseline, you make it harder to be satisfied. But every time you choose voluntary discomfort, you're lowering your baseline. Every time you practice with less, you're lowering your baseline. Every time you embrace small inconveniences, you're lowering your baseline. And every time you lower your baseline, you make it easier to be satisfied. The math is simple, the practice is challenging, but the result is freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of needing more, from the treadmill of hedonic adaptation, from the prison of comfort addiction. So here's your final practice, the culmination of everything we've covered. Design a life that includes regular voluntary discomfort. Not extreme, not punishing, just friction. Daily micro battles that keep your tolerance for discomfort high. Weekly dopamine fasts that keep your baseline for stimulation low. Monthly challenges that push you slightly beyond your comfort zone. Quarterly simplifications where you remove something you've grown dependent on. This isn't about making life harder. It's about making life richer. Because a life without contrast is a life without appreciation. A life without challenge is a life without growth. A life without discomfort is a life of constant dissatisfaction disguised as comfort. You've learned the layers now. You understand the trap. Comfort addiction starts with avoiding micro battles, with choosing ease over effort in small moments. Then it progresses to dopamine dependency, needing constant stimulation to feel normal. Then to the safety illusion, choosing familiar over growth, thinking it's wisdom. Then to fear masquerading as intuition, avoiding challenge and calling it self-awareness. And finally, to hedonic adaptation, where no amount of comfort ever satisfies because your baseline keeps rising. Each layer makes you weaker, more dependent, more fragile, less capable of handling normal life. But now, you know. You see the trap clearly, and seeing it is the first step to escaping it. The second step? Action. Not massive, heroic action. Just small, consistent choices. The stairs, the book, the conversation, the discomfort, the challenge, the less comfortable option, again and again and again, until choosing effort over ease becomes natural, until your tolerance for discomfort is high, until your baseline for comfort is low, until you're someone who can handle life instead of someone who needs life to be gentle with you. That's the goal. Not superhuman resilience, just normal human capacity. The capacity that people had before everything became so easy. The capacity to be okay when things aren't perfect, to keep going when things get hard, to find satisfaction in simple things because you haven't trained yourself to need extraordinary things. This capacity is available to you right now, today. It's built one choice at a time, one micro battle at a time, starting with the very next decision you make. Will you choose comfort or challenge, ease or effort, the familiar or the growing edge? The choice seems small. It's not. It's training your brain for the next choice and the next and the next. It's determining who you're becoming, one decision at a time. Are you becoming someone who needs everything to be easy, or someone who can handle whatever comes? Are you becoming more fragile or more resilient, more dependent or more capable, more comfort addicted or more free? You decide right now with this choice and the next and the next. The elevator or the stairs, the scroll or the book, the delivery or the cooking, the autopilot or the presence. Each choice is a vote for the person you're becoming. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose one micro battle at a time. And watch what happens when you stop being addicted to comfort and start building capacity instead. You won't just survive life. You'll actually live it. Not the sanitized, optimized, friction-free version that promises happiness but delivers restlessness. The real version, the one with challenges and discomfort and effort, the one where satisfaction comes from growing, not just from consuming, the one where you're engaged, not just entertained, present, not just distracted, building, not just experiencing. That life is available, but it requires letting go of comfort addiction. Are you ready? The very next choice you make will tell you the answer, not what you say, what you do, the elevator or the stairs. Choose now, and then choose again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, until choosing growth over comfort isn't a struggle anymore, until it's just who you are. Someone who knows that comfort is nice, but capacity is essential. Someone who understands that ease is pleasant, but challenge is where life happens. Someone who's escaped the trap and built a life of genuine strength instead of fragile comfort. That person is waiting for you. On the other side of the micro battles you've been avoiding, on the other side of the dopamine hits you've been chasing, on the other side of the safety you've been clinging to, on the other side of the fear you've been calling intuition, on the other side of the treadmill you've been running, they're waiting. Will you meet them? The journey starts now with one choice, one small, uncomfortable, growth-inducing choice. Make it, then make another and another, until you've walked so far from comfort addiction that you can barely remember what it felt like to be trapped there, until freedom isn't just a concept, but your daily reality, until you're not just reading about escaping the trap, but living the escape. That's the invitation. The choice is yours. What will it be?